The humidity here is so bad that my windows are literally fogged up, and my hair just feels like a parade float that has set up residence on top of my head. Like, my hair is just getting larger and larger when he's behind the camera. And it's probably gonna move, and there's nothing we can do about it because Winnie is an amazing cinematographer. Also, she likes to be comfy right there. It's the best spot. Welcome back to another pizza party. I'm Mrs. Pizza, and this is a reading vlog. Really? Winnie has decided that the camera needs to move like every 5 seconds. She's looking at me, so she's obviously checking out my angles and deciding where the camera needs to be, obviously. She's also wearing this tiny little red sock on her foot because she hurt her foot somehow. I don't know how. We have no idea. She wasn't even limping. She just was spending a lot of time, you know, her and her tongue were just spending a lot of time with that foot. There's a lot of licking going on. So I took a look at it and it was definitely injured, but it almost looked like it had already been healing. And so now we keep the sock on it so that somebody can't just lick and lick and lick and lick. Also, if you can hear cheese chewing, she's having the time of her life. Get it, girl. That looks delicious. All right, because I am the moodiest of the mood readers and I can't really set TBRs for myself except for like general seasonal TBRs. If I try and set a TBR for a week, it does not work. That is, it's like telling someone that they can't eat carbs and then all they want is carbs. If you tell me what specific books I need to read, the last thing that I want is to read those books. It's like suddenly every single one of those books becomes the least appealing thing to me. So, well, actually, that's kind of the opposite of telling someone they can't have carbs. You get it. You know, you're with me. You're a smart cookie. You're picking up what I'm putting down. So I decided, because I've recently, Winnie, I swear, do you have to touch the camera? Can you come here? Why don't you sit with me? Why don't you sit with me? Because you're a sweet, sweet lady. Sweet lady. There we go. Beautiful. Oh, big huff. We're comfy now. She's getting the appropriate amount of attention. All right, since I have recently redone my TBR bookshelves, I took the time to basically put all of the books from a series that I've already started and not continued on with kind of all together so that I would prioritize picking up series that I really enjoyed and haven't continued on with because I don't know what my problem is. Does anybody know what my problem is? Because I don't. Winnie, thoughts? What are my problems? So, since I have all of these books together, are you here because Winnie was getting attention? Oh, you brought the bone. Even better. No, everybody wants you really close while you're chewing very loudly. That seems like a great idea. I lose my train of thought so easily. So, since I have all of my series to be continued physical books all together, I thought I would start picking away at those books. So it's more of a large TBR to pick from, and I don't feel the constraints. I don't feel the I don't wannas. The first book that I'm actually going to be picking up is The Cage of Hours. This is the second book in, what is the name of this series? The 5 Penalties is the name of this series. So this is the second book. I actually got this a while ago, but I think the second book came out like 2 years after the first book. The first book being The Helm of Midnight. This is a horror fantasy serial killer murder mystery. And it's really, really good, even though it's a little bit hard to explain. So what I can give you about this book is our main character, Krona, is a regulator, which is kind of like a military force police situation in this fantasy world. Also in this fantasy world, there is the ability for people to imbue objects with enchantments. So let's say you're a ridiculously good professional level tennis player. You could imbue your skills at tennis into a magical mask. And then anyone after your death could pick up this mask, put it on, and suddenly be really good at tennis. There are other kind of magical enchantments and objects in this world, but those are the big ones. You're really good at math and you imbue that into a mask and people will pay money to use your mask to be good at math, to be good at accounting, to be good at tennis, to have a leg up in different situations. This world is very thought out and very complicated to explain without you diving into the book. But our main character, Krona, is working this official party that's happening where a bunch of enchanted items have been pulled out of storage so that these rich and fancy people can all mill around and look at these things. And one of the things that is out for display is a mask of the most prolific serial killer that has ever done the murders in this world. And this death mask of theirs, which is on display for everybody to ooh and ah at is stolen during the great event. All this crazy stuff happens and these thieves steal the mask. Now, as soon as this mask is made its way back into the population again from whoever stole it, murders start happening that resemble the murders of the serial killer who this mask was created from. So we are trying to find the mask, find out why it was stolen, but there's other mysteries happening throughout this book that all kind of tie in together as well. This is high fantasy. There's a lot of things happening, but it is so good. Dark, nasty things are happening, but I had a good time and I ended up giving this 4 stars. The ending of the book was very, very sad, and I was interested to see where it went from there. It went here. Before I even thought about starting this book, I was like, gosh, I don't remember everything that happened in the first book. Maybe I should revisit it. And then I opened up this book and literally this opening 2 pages is a recap of everything that happened and everything you need to know about the gods, about the world, about the events that took place. They literally give you a summary of the first book. And as you're reading it, you're like, oh yeah, okay, yes, I remember that. And I was like, this is a great idea. Instead of having to reread an entire book, I get the Cliff's Notes version and immediately almost remember everything. And the things that I'm not going to remember are, I think, going to come back to me if necessary during this book. This one, I think, the world is going to open up again. I'm sure our main character is going to have to deal with the fallout of the ending of the first book. And I'm sure we're going to dive deeper into some of the dark and nefarious cult activities and the religions of this world and the gods it's so good. But it is one of those things where I feel like if I was trying to explain this to someone who hadn't read the book or wasn't a fan of very dense fantasy books, their eyes would start crossing. Not that it's hard to understand. It's very well articulated in the book. It's just not something that I can well articulate without you experiencing the first book. So we're going to pick up The Cage of Hours with this super cool cover and continue on with this series. And after I finish this book, we are going to go back to our shelf and pick another book to continue on with the series. I don't think the third one is out for this one yet, and I don't know when it's projected, but I'm excited to keep going with this one. The only complaint I have about this is the edges are deckled. And that is a tactile problem for me. I don't know why I hate turning deckled pages, but it makes my fingers grossed out. It has been super rainy here for the past couple of days, hence the ridiculous amount of humidity that's going on. I'm sure my hair looks fantastic. What do you do when it's gross and rainy outside? Do you stay inside and read? Obviously. So let's start reading. Let's see how this goes. And action. Okay, bye. No, bye.
Going live to Mrs. Pizza in the field. Hi, Mrs. Pizza. Tell us about the book report today.
The book report? Okay, bye-bye. All right, I have gotten to the 100, well, I have surpassed the 100-page mark in A Cage of Dark Hours, so I can now give you a better synopsis of what this book is about. We are following 3 different points of view in this book. We are following Krona. Bye, Weenie. We are following Krona, who is one of our points of view from the first book. She is a regulator, which is a form of kind of like military police in the city-state that she lives in. We are following a noble who is not from the city-state we are in, but is there on some sort of like political meetup / rubbing elbows with all the other political states kind of event. He is young and driven and has his eyes set on a very high political office. And our third point of view is a child that is a member of a religious cult. We start off the book with the point of view of the Thallow child, which is the child that is in this religious cult. And that point of view is taking place 3 years prior to the events that are taking place in the book with the other points of view. The Thallow child's point of view is taking place immediately after, or starts taking place immediately after the events of the first book, or kind of during the events of the first book. We're not 100% sure. And then every time we revisit the Thallow child's point of view, we have moved ahead a period of time. And that is kind of how each chapter that starts with their point of view begins, telling you how far in the past we are in that point of view's timeline. Now, this book, now that I am at, what page am I at? I am on chapter 19, so I am on page 179. I am getting really, really close to the halfway point. We have an event that we have been warned about from the beginning of the book from a character that briefly appears in the first book. A very mysterious character shows up and tells one of our points of view that something bad is about to happen. She is told where it's going to happen. She is told when it's going to happen, but she isn't told what is going to happen. Well, she is kind of told what is going to happen. She just isn't told who it's going to happen to. And Krona is warned to stay away. Well, Krona is in a tailspin. She, after the events of the first book, is riddled with guilt, dealing with her grief in very reckless ways. And I will also say one of the characters that is really present in this book in the timeline with our noble is another character from the first book. And I have a feeling the author just really likes this character. I mean, I do too. I'm really enjoying their kind of antics, and, you know, they're very smart and resourceful and from the lower class, but just a good time, but also the kind of character that is watching all of the wheels turning and the cogs going and knows how to work people in the room. They always have their own plan and their own end game and survival in mind. I am pretty sure I know what the cover and the title have to do with from some things that have been mentioned, but I'm eager to see like if that goes the direction I think it's going to go. I will say about this book, this is not a book for fantasy beginners. I really love the world that's been created, and so much thought has been put into it, from the aspects of there being 5 gods that all have different genders and names, and everything within this society basically comes back to the number of 5 because of the influence of their gods. How even their burial rites for each place that has a different patron god is different based on the god's element. And it's very, very interesting that someone can take and create a world so intricate that it yet has so many moving parts and is so deep and interesting, but not necessarily hard to understand, just intricate. I'm really, really enjoying this. We haven't really gotten to anything gruesome or dark. I feel like by this point in the first book starts off with a bang, and there's the stealing of the serial killer mask, and then murders start happening. Whereas this one, we know something bad is about to happen, and we are all, these pieces are moving towards this thing happening, and you don't know who it's going to happen to. You just know it's going to happen. So this is more of a creeping towards that dread sort of thing. But I'm enjoying this. I think this series is doing exactly what all fantasy series do, where the world opens up a little bit in the second book. We have higher stakes. We're getting a peek behind the curtain to see more of these powers that are pulling the strings of all those around them. I'm liking this. Also, the imagery in this is just intense sometimes. But I'm really, really liking this. So far, going really well. I've been trying to pick up an audiobook now for several days and really haven't found anything that I've been interested in. So the quest continues. So this is really the only book I'm reading right now, which never happens. I at least have an audiobook going while I'm reading a physical book. So maybe because this one is holding all my attention, that's been fine. But the weather is incredibly crappy here, if you couldn't tell by the state. My hair has been rained on twice in as many days and just keeps getting larger and larger with every time it's getting damp. So I feel very Daryl Hannah in Splash, which is a movie that's even before my time. I have a very vivid image of her hair in my head, and I feel very similar to that right now. But because the weather has been so crappy, we're going to get a lot of reading done. Are you standing right there?
No.
If you can hear my air conditioning going, there's nothing I can do about it. And I apologize. I'm sorry if it's annoying, but it is officially hot here. We have gone all summer long with the weather being absolutely mild, and it was fantastic. But finally, summer's like, knock, knock, I'm here, and it is hot as hell outside. So my air conditioning is trying her best. She's working hard for us. And I've already gotten in trouble for turning the thermostat up. Mr. Pizza is part polar bear and does not like it hot. So I'm not allowed to touch the air conditioner. We're here to do an update. I have finished The Cage of Dark Hours, and I really, really enjoyed this. If you have read the first book, The Helm of Midnight, and you really enjoyed that one, you're going to like this one too. Like most fantasy series, the second book, or any series really, the second book in any series, usually the world opens up. You're just going to put your hand in my hair and chew your foot? Hello? The world opens up, the opposing forces to our main characters get stronger, bigger. You get a peek behind the curtain to all of the things going on behind the scenes that you had no idea, or you just got like little sprinkles in the beginning. If you start off the first book and it's like stepping into the entryway, and then the second book you open the doors and you're in a freaking football field. Like, it's just the size and scope of the story is so much bigger. This felt a little bit more I hate to say like formulaic fantasy, but it felt a little bit more traditional fantasy in the way the storyline worked with this one. The first book, you're following this serial killer and we're investigating the murders. Where this one, what we're doing is we are told about a situation. Halfway point of the book, the situation comes to a head, and then from there on out, we're working towards a new goal. And the last little bit of this is just action-packed, and you are on the edge of your seat wondering how this is going to wrap up, who's going to make it out alive, if we're going to accomplish any of the things that we've set out to accomplish. I also think this author has done a fantastic job of creating a world. These magic system and the world itself is so well thought out, and even down to like little tiny details. The one I feel like I always talk about is in this book, there are 5 forms of magic, there are 5 gods, but there are also 5 days in a week, because of course there would be, because having the number 5 be so intricate and important in so many different ways would also just influence other things in everyday life. This was so flippin' good. And one of our, I'm going to call them a villain, but one of our villains got a very swift just exit. They were just, I won't say it was satisfying, but like I needed something bad to happen to this person, and it did. It happened. Also, this has set us up for the third book. The third book's going to be even bigger, where basically at the end of the book, even more kind of secrets are unraveled that will be addressed in the third book. If you're a new person to fantasy, if you haven't read any kind of like dense fantasy novels before, I would not start with this series. It's a lot, but it was so good. I'm glad I read it. I'm sorry it took me so long to read it. I'm sorry it took me so long to read you. But you were good. Also, I know what the cover is now. I thought I knew what the cover is. I was 110% right. I have also gone from a dry spell of not having a single audiobook that I was listening to then having 2, because Library Holds came through, and apparently I was like, yeah, sure. Do you want to go see? He keeps walking by, and so she's very interested. I'm going to let you out, and then you're going to... Both of you go. I don't know where you're going. Bye. The first audiobook that came through the library was Ink Blood Sister Scribe, and this is by Emma Torzs. This is their debut novel, and all I really know about this is that it is about 2 sisters who have grown up knowing about magic. And in this world, books are kind of the instrument of magic. Books are where magic is contained, how magic is created. Books are important. We have our 2 sisters, Esther and Joanna, I believe. And the book opens with their father dying. It's not really a spoiler because it happens like on the first page. But then you fast forward into the future, and both sisters have taken very different paths in life. Joanna has stayed home to protect the magical books. She lives a very quiet and isolated lifestyle just in her home, surrounded by books, where Esther has traveled the world and hasn't stayed put for very long. What I will say so far, having just started this book, is I'm getting the feeling that even though these sisters have been raised with magic and magical books and think that they understand at least a piece of this world, I think that they just have a very, very small understanding of how any of the magic or the books that contain the magic in this world work. This is supposed to have, magic and romance and adventure, and I'm excited. It's a Good Morning America book club pick, which I don't think I've ever read any of their book club picks on purpose before. But this is one of those books that I just had a bunch of people telling me that they thought I would like it. It has like dark academia in the synopsis, but so far I'm not getting at least typical dark academia. I think it's a buzzword and people love a buzzword, but it's one of those books that everybody kept saying, you'll absolutely love this. I know you'll absolutely love this. Even though I don't even think any of them had read it, they were just like, magic books. That sounds like your kind of deal. So I put it on my list for the library and my hold came through. At the same time as all of my holds came through, I had to keep kicking them back. I just had no holds coming through and then all of a sudden all of my audiobook holds came. That's just how it works, right? Feast or famine. The other audiobook that I've picked up is Hollow Kingdom, and this is by Kira Jane Buxton. This book I picked up, one, because the cover is very colorful and it caught my attention, but also because someone basically pitched this as Zombieland meets The Secret Life of Pets. Isn't sold. 100% sold. That sounds insane, and I'm here for it. And I will say that is 110% what I'm getting. In this story, we are following, I'm not going to say what his actual name is, but I know that there's an abbreviation that we are using. ST. We are following ST. He is our main point of view and our narrator, and he's a crow. He's a crow. And he belongs to a guy named Big Jim. Big Jim, I believe, rescued ST when he was a tiny little baby bird and raised him. And ST loves Big Jim. Big Jim also has a dog named, what is his dog's name? Dennis. He has a dog named Dennis. Sounds like Dennis is a very dim-witted bloodhound, but adorable. I'm sure he's adorable. Well, one day, ST notices that something is off with Big Jim, and this day keeps getting weirder and weirder until one day Big Jim's eyeball falls out. And that sets in motion a crazy adventure where the world is kind of ended and we're getting the zombie apocalypse through the eyes of the animals. I'm actually really enjoying this. It is very, very funny. Sometimes the humor, I don't know if the humor would be for everyone, but I'm having a good laugh. It's definitely not G-rated humor. A lot of it is just getting an animal's perspective on things just sounds hilarious. But yeah, what would happen to all of the animals in the world, especially the domesticated animals, if human beings all became zombies? So I'm reading two very different books right now, and both of them audiobooks. So I need to pick up a physical book, seeing as how I have finished my physical book, and I need an emotional support physical book to follow me around at all times. I've also got to put up some paint samples on the exterior of the house because we are having the house painted here soon. So I've got to go and do that. Got to clean up the house. Got to do some reading. We are rapidly approaching the 4th of July, too. You just, literally watched me disassociate for a minute. So, it's going to be a busy weekend. I need to pick out another book. Maybe I'll let one of the dogs pick out the book for me. That way I don't get the decision paralysis. You know? All right, let's make a cocktail for you wimpy babies who want to sit outside and enjoy a cocktail, but if you have more than one during the daytime, you're gonna fall asleep at 5 o'clock. So we've added some ice to our cup, and then we pull out our citrus fruits, do a little choppy choppy. Nice, watch it. Mad knife skills. Then, the most important ingredient, the coconut tequila, because summertime vibes. Open that bad boy up, because you just bought it, because you're a lightweight and you don't keep liquor in the house. Add enough that it's an alcoholic beverage, but not enough that you fall asleep really fast. Then, we get out our Grand Marnier, try and open it, and then realize it's not open. Because, again, pop that top, add a splishy splash. Doing great, honey. Perfect. Now, we are going to add our lemon. Look at that. Now we're going to try and add our lime. You ready? Just She-Hulk that mess and nothing comes out. Not working. Get our specialty tool just for this job. There she goes. Awesome. Now we're going to add some water so that it's drinkable. Also hydration. It's very important. Then we use that cup to do our mixy-mixy. Look at that. Beautiful. Back in our original cup. Good job. Looking gorgeous. Let's garnish that mess. All of our former bartending skills to the test. Yes, you can still be a lightweight even if you were a bartender in a past life. Look at her. She's gorgeous. She's ready for summertime. Let's get rid of the evidence. Add some more ice because it's hot outside. What if I told you I already recorded this entire clip and for some reason it was all in slow-mo? It's real moody and cinematic, but not what I wanted. All right, if you can hear my air conditioning running, I'm sorry. I tried to get as far away from it as possible. I also think that my neighbor is done mowing their lawn, but who knows? I have no control over my surroundings and I just have to live with that. I am here to check in because I have finished 2 books. 2 books. And just haven't been checking in because life is chaos and I'm trying my best. The first book that I finished is Ink Blood Sister Scribe, and I really, really enjoyed this book. I was pleasantly surprised, honestly, about how much I enjoyed it, seeing as how I just picked it up from the library because everybody told me I might like it. And you know, sometimes that goes really well. Sorry, that was an ant. Sometimes that goes really well and sometimes it doesn't. So I will say about this book, for a debut novel, it was a really, really great job. I feel like oh, here comes the cheese. The point of views, I will say, all felt like real people and you really, really care for them. We also get a third point of view other than the 2 sisters, and I won't tell you who that is because that's a little bit of a spoiler, because you need to go in to this point of view not knowing who they are and kind of find out about the history of this world all for yourself. I also will say this book turned out to be one of those books where you as the reader are getting a lot of clues about what's going on, so you are reaching conclusions before the characters do. It's not so much twists because you're figuring it out way before they do. You're just kind of waiting for the characters to get to where you are. There's breadcrumbs just leading you to where you need to be. But the author did a really good job of leaving all of these clues so you can figure out where the story is going. The only downside to that is I wasn't surprised by any of the big reveals, but I don't know if you're really supposed to be, and I still had a really great time with it, even if I wasn't having any big surprises. This was a lot of fun. The world was a lot of fun. It was really cool to imagine this modern day world that there's just magic secretly happening all over the place, and people who can use this magic, hear this magic, find this magic, and it's all tied to books, because let's be honest, books are their own special kind of magic now, aren't they? I do not think this is dark academia, not even a little bit, but I think, again, that's a buzzword. you know? It's a book about magic books. So that should be enough. That was fun. I would definitely read more from this author in the future. I had a really great time with this. It was super easy to get through. I was on the edge of my seat because you were obviously trying to unravel mysteries as the plot moves forward. And there is a point where you as the reader know some of these plot lines, these point of views are about to converge, but our characters do not. And you are just, I was on the edge of my seat. I was like, when is it going to happen? Is it going to happen now? Are we going to, is it now? Are we there? Have they found each other? And they do. And I was like, oh, yes. Thank goodness. I've been waiting for this. I had a really good time with this. I also think even though there was a teensy little sprinkle of romance in this, I would not say this, not really. As someone who reads a lot of romance, this just had a touch, a dash, shall we say. But it's not the least bit romance heavy. The other book that I picked up and then finished is Summerreading by Jenn McKinlay. I had never read anything from this author before and heard absolutely nothing about this. Look at this cover. Look at her. I was like, it's summertime and I want to read something that looks rom-com-y summertime and drink alcoholic beverages outside in my backyard. 'Cause summer, you know? So I did. In this story, we are following Samantha, otherwise known as Sam, and she is traveling back to her small hometown, which is a beach town on Martha's Vineyard, and she's on the ferry when circumstances happen, and she bumps into a super dreamy guy and knocks his book into the water, and that is our meet cute. Now, these two have a brief conversation where they are totally feeling the vibes, and then they are quickly separated. Now, Sam is traveling back to her small hometown because her dad and her stepmom are going on a big European vacation, and her 14-year-old half-brother needs adult supervision. So, Sam, who was 14 years old when her brother was born, doesn't really have much of a connection with him because she was a moody teenager when he came into the world, and she was out of the house by the time that he was more than just a toddler. She's also looking at this as an opportunity to connect with this teenage brother of hers. She's kind of at a crossroads in her life. She's a chef and has spent the majority of her adult life working her way up to being someone that is acclaimed in the chef world, but now she's kind of at a crossroads. So she's headed back to her small hometown. Now, one of the things you have to know about Sam is she has dyslexia. And one of the cool things about this book is the font of the book and kind of how the book is written, actually like physically how it is written, the author puts a note in there about it, is supposed to be better for people that struggle with dyslexia to be able to comprehend and read this more easily. I don't know much about dyslexia, but it didn't bother me at all having the font be different than it usually would be in a book. And if it makes it more accessible to other people, then have at it. What a great idea. Our male main character, whose name is Ben, the one that dropped his book off the side of the ferry, he is actually the new head librarian is what I'm going to call him. I think there's another name for him. So he is very into books, and Sam, who has dyslexia, has very tumultuous past with reading and books. And so these two are opposites, and opposites attract. Now here's what I'll say about this book. I feel like this is a romance book written by someone who doesn't usually write romance. I think that they really like romance. I think they're a big fan of romance books, but I think they probably write in another genre. I don't know if that's true. That's just how it felt. This book had a lot of cool things going on. I loved the sibling relationship between Sam and her brother and how that evolves. I liked Sam's friends. I liked Ben and the reason that he's there on the island and what he's searching for and all of these different things. But I didn't really feel any chemistry for the two main love interests after that first initial meet cute. We're, I guess, just supposed to take it that they like each other, so there's chemistry, but I just didn't feel it. And as far as romance goes, that's kind of an important part of the book. I also felt like the third act, because this book did what a lot of romance books like to do in the third act and throw a third act little tiff/breakup in there. It didn't seem realistic with the characters, that how they had been introduced to us throughout the story. It felt like it didn't make any sense. And it felt like, well, in romance books, you have a third act breakup, so I have to do a third act breakup. So here's your third act breakup. Ta-da! I would say I probably won't read any more romance books going forward from this author. I don't think they're a bad author. I just don't think my tastes in romance and their tastes in writing romance, they don't jive. You know what I mean? But I read it. with a cocktail in my backyard. And that was the point, wasn't it? That's all I really wanted to do. But that, kids, is we are going to leave this vlog because this has been pure chaos. And just like my life, this has been pure chaos. So I'm ready to end this one. But I definitely finished some books. So I'm proud of myself, you know? And now I gotta go pick up another book to read outside on this glorious day. But if you had a good time hanging out with me and the dogs, please subscribe. I hope you're reading good books out there wherever you are. And I'll see you next time.